Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so if you've ever stared at a dense academic journal article or maybe a massive university textbook and just felt like you were trying to read a completely foreign language, yeah, I want you to know you're definitely not alone. It can feel like hitting a total brick wall. You know that exact feeling, right? You read the exact same paragraph 3 times over and absolutely nothing. But here's the secret. Academic English, it's not just this overwhelming, impenetrable mass of text. It's actually a highly structured, totally decipherable code. And today, we're diving right into a massive breakthrough for language learners, the academic word list. Think of it as your master key to unlock those complex texts. We're going to make your reading faster, your comprehension deeper, and your writing incredibly sharp.
So first off, let's validate that frustration you might be feeling. Why is academic reading so incredibly hard? Well, let's look at a quick comparison. Imagine a perfectly normal, everyday conversational sentence. If you invest in a real facility, this implies that you are going to be committed for a long term. Easy, right? We all understand that. But the academic version of that exact same thought is, investment in a rail facility implies a long-term commitment. The famous linguist Michael Holliday calls this high lexical density. Basically, what happens in academic writing is that actions and events get frozen. They get repackaged as nouns. Notice how the conversational version uses 13 whole grammatical words, things like if you and that you are going to be, just to connect the ideas. But the academic version condenses all of that into a tightly packed phrase using just 3 grammatical words. So yeah, it packs way more information into a much smaller space. It's super efficient, sure, but man, it is incredibly dense to read. Now, when you actually break down the vocabulary in these dense texts, it honestly feels like there are millions of words you don't know. But research actually shows that the vocabulary in any academic text essentially falls into just 3 manageable tiers. Get this. A massive 80% of the text is just high-frequency general words. Words like the, is, water, time. You already know all of these. Then there's a tiny 5% slice of technical words. If you're studying biology, that's a word like photosynthesis. If it's law, it's jurisprudence. You just learn those as you study your specific subject. But then there's that final 8 to 10% slice. That is the academic vocabulary. These are the heavy lifters, the words that show up across absolutely all disciplines to hold the arguments together. So if you just need to conquer that 8 to 10% slice, how do you actually do it? Enter the Academic Word List, or the AWL. This is a brilliant compilation put together by Dr. Avril Coxhead. She basically analyzed a massive corpus of academic texts and pinpointed just 570 word families that pop up most frequently in academic writing. And this is the crucial takeaway here. It literally does not matter if you are studying applied linguistics, civil engineering, or corporate finance. These 570 words are going to show up constantly. They form the literal structural framework of academic discourse. If you know these words, you can navigate pretty much any textbook out there. To give you an idea of what we're talking about, let's look at some of the very first headwords alphabetically, starting from abandon down through draft. We're talking about words like accommodate, ambiguous, compile, crucial, and deviate, right? They aren't bizarre ancient Latin terms that nobody uses anymore. They're highly functional, highly precise words used to evaluate evidence, describe phenomena, and build arguments. Just think about how often a professor asks you to compile data, or explains why a certain variable is crucial to an experiment, or points out where a study might deviate from the norm. These are the exact terms an expert author uses to make their writing crystal clear. Master these headwords, and you've essentially conquered the foundational terminology of the entire academic world. But wait, you might be thinking, didn't you say 570 word families, not just individual words? Yes, absolutely. And here is how that magic works. About half the words in academic texts are content words, and they act like little shapeshifters. They completely transform their word class or part of speech to fit whatever grammatical structure the sentence needs. Let's take the base word predict as a verb. Slap on a suffix and boom, it becomes the noun prediction. Tweak it just a bit more, it's the adjective predictable. And finally, the adverb predictably. Same thing with a word like analyze. You analyze the data, right? That's a verb. You write an analysis, a noun. The data is analytical, an adjective. The real secret here is that you shouldn't just memorize one form. When you learn the whole word family, you are multiplying your vocabulary exponentially. You aren't just learning 570 words, you're unlocking thousands of related words that share the exact same core meaning. Okay, let's talk about another secret weapon, collocations. See, academic English is actually made up of these prefabricated chunks. A collocation is simply the regular occurrence of certain words together in a text.
Native speakers and expert writers, they don't just sit there and invent every single sentence from scratch. They use established patterns. So in an academic paper, you wouldn't usually say you're going to do research. You conduct research. You don't just say there was a big difference in the data. You report a significant difference. You perform chemical analysis. Or maybe you draw a conclusion instead of making a conclusion. Learning these academic words in their natural, predictable pairs is an absolute game changer. It's going to make your reading dramatically faster because your brain actually starts anticipating what comes next before you even finish the sentence. Plus, when you write, you'll instantly sound so much more authoritative. All right, so how do we actually put all this into practice? Our source material outlines some fantastic, evidence-based study strategies to help you build an action plan. Step 1, please, whatever you do, don't just read the list from A to Z. That is a total recipe for boredom. Instead, reorganize the words. Group them by topic, related meanings, or word classes. Like maybe putting all the abstract nouns together, or grouping words related to research methodology. Step 2 is a really great one. Build your own individual corpus, which really just means a personal collection of texts. Try searching for these new words in Google Scholar to see exactly how they're used in real academic sentences within your specific major. Copy and paste those examples into a document so you have your very own customized study guide. And finally, step 3, actively use them. Next time you write an essay, or hey, even just draft an email to your professor, force yourself to swap out a basic word with an academic word family member you just learned. Well, we have definitely covered a lot of ground in this explainer today. We went from Holliday's concept of lexical density all the way to the shape-shifting power of word families and collocations. The big takeaway here? That intimidating language you see in university texts is really just a small, highly predictable percentage of vocabulary. It's just an 8 to 10% slice that you can absolutely master by using the academic word list. So my final question to you is this. Now that you hold the master key, which academic text are you going to unlock first? Seriously, challenge yourself. Take this toolkit, go open up that dense journal article you've been putting off all week, and start cracking the code. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy learning.